I was walking into the unknown.
You cannot reason with nature.
People were talking about killing people like it wasn't a thing. It's like a dating app for murder. Bap, 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 bap. I don't know who the fuck's shooting.
I've shit my pants.
I'm not, whoa, 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 whoa. It's a way to get girls, it's a way to drive a nice car, it's a way to be in with the crowd, to be respected. That changed when it happened to me. Same shit, different day. Oh man. So today I'm joined by another character who's no stranger to danger, Foxy.
Like being warned off strangers at school. Stranger danger. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for having me.
No problem. Listen, the last time I saw you, you were beasting me in the desert in Jordan somewhere. So this is a much more relaxed environment to, you know, get to talking.
Bit colder.
A little bit colder, yeah, 100%.
Mate, you've been busy. I'm super excited to get into what you've been up to. Let's talk about this series, mate. Why this documentary?
You know what, Foxy, I tried to do everything with purpose going forward, you know, and I thought this would be a really meaningful documentary. Taking danger outside of it, I think it's really good to meet young men who grow up with adversity and not to judge them or point the finger at them, but to understand their story of what led them to here. Because I think, you know, in this day and age, you know, so many people are struggling with their mental health. A lot of people think their life is really bad. And I guess I wanted to show the world how these people live, to give them perspective on maybe how good their life is.
What was the general gist of speaking to these people? Were they bad people? Were they people that could never be brought back?
I genuinely don't believe that you've got categorically bad people in the world. Maybe you've got bad situations, bad circumstances, or bad things that have happened to you. I went into every situation with an open mind. I went in with a warm heart, and I tried to go in with a smile, whether I was meeting a contract killer or cartel members or militia bosses. I went in with the same intention. The revelation was I didn't have a bad experience with anyone, which made it really hard. I don't condone criminality. I don't condone people doing bad things. But I actually got on with these guys, and I found that there wasn't such a divide between, you know, me and them. And I realized that we're all humans. So it wasn't like I could say that I met a bad person from experience. I met some bad people by hearing their stories and the things that they'd done. There was a lot of them, I felt, Foxy, that I thought if their circumstance was different, they would be different. I think a lot of people were in a lot of pain through what they were doing. You know, they're suffering a lot of trauma, they're suffering a lot of guilt. They don't want to be in that life, but in a lot of situations, they have no other choice. And it left me feeling quite bad a lot of the time.
Did you feel like you wanted to help them more than you could have done?
Yeah. You know, it's weird, isn't it, Foxy? Yeah, like, you know, I found that, you know, in life we say same shit, different day. I was like same shit, different place. I feel like every country, every place I went to had the same problem. It was a systemic problem. It was a problem bigger than them. And they were doing things a lot of the time to survive. I went and met a lady whose son had been murdered. And because I shared to her that I'd lost a child, very different circumstances. And when we hugged and embraced, it's like the lady didn't want to let me go. But then the next day, I met a contract killer. And I decided to hug him at the end of our encounter. And it was like he didn't want to let me go either. You know, I spoke to this guy and I felt sorry for him. I mean, if the victim was one of my family members, I guess I'd wish that he deserved everything that comes to him. But in the conversation that I had with him, I thought, this guy's a guy that's suffering with trauma, he's suffering with guilt, he's suffering with pain, and he's ruined his life, and he's never ever gonna get that back because of the actions that he committed. And to a certain extent, yes, the guy should be punished, but it didn't take the humanity out of the situation of me feeling bad for him. It's such a conflicting place to be in.
The position that you're in going into this documentary, regardless of the people that you're meeting, all of those people are in dark places, whether they're victims, whether they're what's the word, perpetrators, you know, they're the people that are creating the victims. They're all in dark places for one reason or another, and I think maybe you were, for a short period of time where you were a part of their life, you were a glimmer of hope. Because you turned up non-judgmental with a smile on your face, being the person that you are, not a journalist, not digging in for headlines, just wanting to find out something about them, then maybe that they saw that there was a bit of humanity left within a small space that is around them.
Do you know what? That is one of the best interpretations I've heard. It enlightened a part of me, what you said, and I'm glad that you're seeing that. You know, I had to go into the situations that way. When I was side by side with my daughter when she was battling cancer, one of the most incredible things was she was able to shine light on me through her darkness. Through the saddest time of my life, she was able to make it the best time. And I said that, you know, going forward, I hope to be a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of light to other people. So I wanted to go in and show compassion. I wanted to talk true and hard to them, but I also wanted to go in with an open mind, open arms, and let them be heard. Because the thing is, for us, Foxy, you know, I'm guessing you have things that have caused trauma in your life. I've had things that caused trauma in my life. And we're able to live in a world where we can speak about it, and not only speak to each other as men, but we have a platform to be able to share all the things that we feel or that we've done or which we may want to recover from, whereas these people don't. These people get judged, and they've got no, by a jury, and they've got no way of saying, like, this is how I feel, or this is what start I had, or this is what I'm trying to do in my life. So I wanted to try and be a true and open voice for the people that don't get to speak about their issues, speak about their problems, and get things off their chest, and let them know that even though they may have lost hope and faith and belief in themselves and their life and environment, I haven't lost that in them, and hopefully that could have sparked something for them to have changed.
What was the darkest place you went to on this?
I have to talk about Brazil. Brazil is a place where I've dreamed about going my whole life. And if you've been to Brazil?
Never. I want to go.
Mate, it's one of
You're about to tell me not to go, aren't you?
It's one of the most fascinating places on earth. You walk around, mate, and everyone is fit. Like, the men are fit, the women are fit, beautiful beaches, you know, lively culture. Everywhere you turn is like an opportunity to see the most picturesque or beautiful or energetic kind of photo opportunity. Like, it's unreal. But then there's also that darker side, and it's like there's over 1,000 favelas in Rio, yeah? And a lot of these are really deep and dark places. I went to 3 favelas that no media crew has been to before. You know, so I was walking into the unknown. But I think one of the most daunting ones is probably going to a Militia favela. Now, this Militia boss, I was talking to him, and when I was speaking to him, like, he wouldn't really admit what he'd done. So I asked him a different question, Foxy. I said, what do you see when you look in the mirror? I said, for most of my life, I said, I seen guilt, I said, I seen shame, I seen disappointment. I seen somebody that wasn't happy with their reality. I seen somebody that never reached their potential. And I said, when I looked in the mirror, I was disappointed. I said, now I see a person that's trying to be better than he was yesterday, and a person that's having a positive impact in the world. And I know my reasons why, so I'm pleased when I look in the mirror. I said, what do you see when you look in the mirror? And he just started crying. It opened up all the things that he didn't want to say, and made him actually look deep into his soul and question it himself. And I swear to God, for the rest of the interview, he had tears in his eyes. He had to keep getting a tissue. He said, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. He said, it's the first time in my life that nobody's been scared of me and asked me a real question. He was talking to me after, like, the question changed his life, because, so, you know what it is, Foxy? I'm a mommy's boy, yeah? So if I've got any problems or troubles, I can always talk to my mum. Yeah. I've got a blessed family, I can always talk to my family. I've been able to communicate how I feel without it looking like weakness to millions of people from around the world. But if my reality was just being tough all my life and not showing weakness and never having to reflect on my actions, never having to express how I feel, and never being able to because it's seen as weakness, it's seen as all these things, probably to get asked a question which wasn't directly, who have you killed? How do you feel about it? Maybe just giving him a question so he can search deep into his soul and reflect on it himself may have not gave us all the answers we wanted in that interview, but it definitely gave a reaction which shown everything. I mean, Foxy, I may have been really lucky or I may have been really good at de-escalating a situation, I don't know, but I guess there's some situations where that potentially isn't an option. From experiences that you've been in, how can you tell when the temperature's rising and when, you know, shit is literally about to get cracking?
The thing with that is there's lots of different ways that situations escalate. And there could be, you know, it could be that someone has given you there's a warning. And then, you know, the people within the vicinity don't really heed the warning. They don't understand how to then translate what their next actions or the next things that they say. And then it sort of becomes even more tense. But then for me, the scariest moments are, I've been in situations where there's no real obvious indicator that something is gonna kick off other than it's quiet and the hairs on the back of your neck go on end, or you get this really horrible, like your arsehole tenses up and you're like, fuck, something's going to happen here, and then the next thing it does go noisy. It's really difficult to try and convey which one I think is the worst. I think the one where you get a warning, where there's an indicator, I think is the better one, because there's an opportunity to reason like you did. And I don't think you were lucky. I think you were savvy to understand how to de-escalate. Like, the best thing that anyone can ever do is de-escalate. And I think looking at and listening to what you said when you said, you know, the instructions were don't smile, don't do this, don't do eye contact, all this sort of stuff. Actually, they're the one things that you should do. You know, just, if you read the room right and you read the person right, just a small touch on the shoulder and a smile and, you know, being non-confrontational and almost being submissive can sometimes turn a situation into a situation that you want as opposed to one that you don't want.
It's really crazy you say that, because in Brazil as well, so there was that scenario there where, you know, some people were worried, but I didn't feel worried because I had his eye contact, I had his attention, and I felt like we knew each other. But then it was the day before, I think, we went on a patrol in a favela. It was a TCP favela. So, you know, met this guy who was one of the guards. So walking around the favela, he's doing his checks. He's like, oh, this is a hot spot. He says near the river, it's a hot spot, because over the river, that's not our jurisdiction. And there's obviously gaps in the buildings. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. You know, not thinking, walking, bap, 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 bap. I'm like, whoa, 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 like that. He's dived on the floor, crawled around the corner. I'm like, brick, like this, get beyond the brick.
Yeah.
And then that is when it was different, because it was like, I don't know who the fuck's shooting. I've not spoke to them. They don't know I'm cool. And as far as I'm concerned, if we run now, where the fuck are we running to? We're going to run more. We're either going to run deep into a favela where all the people there don't know who we are, or we're going to run out of the favela into whoever's probably shooting. So that was a moment. And luckily, you know, it calmed down and everything was fine.
You know, whilst on the subject of like de-escalation, indication that people are getting angry, and you know that there's a point where you've got to try and calm situations down. People have always asked me, you know, what are the scariest situations you've been in, and they expect me to talk and say or mention the fact that being with angry humans, the enemy, whatever you want to call it, would be the case. But for me, I always find it's wildlife, it's nature itself, because at least apart from when a human has gone banzai, absolutely batshit crazy and starts firing off weapons, which is basically making them like an animal, you cannot reason with nature. You can't calm a situation down. There's no way you're going to stop a rhino, a bear, whatever it might be, and say, hey, hang on a minute, mate, I'm not here to hurt you. Just light touch on the shoulder that you can do with an angry human if the situation dictates. Do you feel the same? Have you sort of experienced that?
I think that one takes me to South Africa.
Yeah.
One of the weirdest observations of South Africa was, like we all marvel over it, don't we? We think, oh, the big five, rhinos, lions, all of this kind of stuff. When you actually get to the African people, they don't want to know. They're like, we stay away as far as possible. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. A lot of them are scared of the animals, which they should be. They're not marveling over them. They're scared because obviously they probably see the potential danger of these animals most days. There was one day when I got introduced to the rhino, and that was by the Rhino Whisperer, where we were, we got to get out the car and walk on foot, to a group of, 6 male white rhinos. Which, I don't know, there's some tonnage there, isn't there?
Fucking massive.
There's some tonnage there. They would knock down this room, literally. And it was really funny because as we were walking towards them, obviously me, I want to try and get a bit closer. I actually then realised where we were. And I went, I know we're going to see the rhinos, but is there like cats here? And he was like, yes. And I thought, one thing is approaching the rhino, but okay, what if a leopard comes? What do we do then? And like you said, there was no reasoning in that part. He was just telling me to be grounded, to be at one with where I am, and to not panic. And we managed to get within probably this distance to the wall, away from the group of white rhinos. They didn't charge. We got told if they do, get behind a tree, I think they would have probably knocked the tree down. It's one of them kind of things. But then we also got an opportunity to dehorn a black rhino, which was absolutely insane. Black rhinos are severely, severely endangered.
Yeah.
Actually got to be part of taking the horn off, administering medication, doing the care for the rhino in terms of like trying to dull its senses, block its eyes, block its hearing to keep it calm while the process was happening. I actually then got to hold it, to feel its breath, to feel how big and powerful it was. And that was a really intense moment. We had limited amounts of time to get in and do it, limited amounts of time to get out. Because once you put in that serum that wakes it up, they're very aggressive and you've got to get the fuck out of there, because it's ready to take on, anything in its path. And it's exactly as you said, it's an experience where you kind of have to submit to the environment, submit to nature, and I think doing things for the right reasons. We're taking the horn off to try and protect and preserve the species rather than to harm it. And I think the fact that I knew I was doing a good thing, I think the fact that I had a great team around me who's used to doing this, and I think because we were efficient, it ended up being very safe, but it could have been a lot different.
If it did wake up and you were still there, at least it didn't have a fucking horn.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, mate. It's been a big headbutt. So, rhino, yeah. But then me and you have both done a race called the Yukon 1000. And then
you did the race. I meandered through the Yukon.
You meandered through
but
it.
We were there, yeah.
Yeah. And they call that race, the toughest survival endurance race in the world. They say there's past 600 miles, it's past the point of return, the final frontier. If anything happens, no rescue. So there's a lot of things to fear. But I think for me, the main thing was knowing that there's fucking Kodiak bears or grizzly bears that are there, and there's technically nothing you could do about it if one's facing you. Have you ever experienced any face-to-faces with bears or any dangerous animals?
So going out to the Yukon, my biggest anxiety was the wildlife, the bear, basically. Because I was like, again, going back to what we said, you're not reasoning with this thing. You can do some stuff that rangers teach you to do, but you ain't, once it's decided to fucking kill you, there's not an awful lot you can do. So I was very anxious about that. I can remember the guy that I did it with, I was like, mate, what sort of weapon are we going to carry? He's like, mate, we can't carry weapons. We're British citizens. And I was like, what? It was probably in the 4th week of our trip. We'd stopped on a sandbar. It was quite a big sandbar. We'd stopped for a lunch break. Sean, the other lad's gone over and he's just looking at the the scenery. And he'd been saying for the whole trip, twice a day, oh, look, there's a moose or a bear. And it never was. It was something else. Anyway, he says this. He's like, oh, look. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And I thought, I'll go and see what he's going on about. So I've walked over to where Sean is. And the way I remember it, as I've got level with him, he's fucking sprinted past me, shouting, it's a fucking grizzly. And I'm like, my heart's going. I'm like, what? And I'm like looking, I couldn't see anything. Then there was movement, like something caught my attention just off to the right, and I've glanced. And like less than 50 meters away is a fucking bear. It's massive, and it's like that, and it's coming towards us. And it's like, mate, I've shit my pants. I've literally, my arse has fallen out. It was a big, big bear, and I've turned to Sean and I've shouted, don't run. Because I remember the one thing we got taught in the event of a bear encounter was you don't run, you just stand your ground. And as I shouted that, he's turned to me as he's running and shouted, fuck off. and I ran. I was like, fucking ran. I've never ever felt like I've been in like, so in Africa, I've had a couple of encounters, close-ish ones with animals out there, and felt scared. But this was on another level. And we were almost embarrassed because we were like, we didn't do what we were supposed to do, but I'm fucking glad we didn't do it. But are we lesser people?
It's humbling.
It was
humbling.
I was like, we should have fucking stayed and fought the bear. It's like,
well, you have all dreams, don't you? Like beforehand, you're thinking, like, I'm gonna do this, and if it comes up to me, I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna get my mate to get it on video, and then this is gonna happen, and blah blah. And then when it comes to it, you're like, fuck that. I need to survive.
One of the places you've mentioned, Brazil, is a place I haven't been, but there's one place that massively fascinates me, and the reason is I've never been there either. And I know it's dangerous. I actually did, when I was in the military, I had to do a geopolitical brief on the Philippines, and because I dug deep into the country without going there, I was like, fucking hell, it's dangerous, isn't it?
Well, it's different. I mean, Foxy, right? One thing I didn't do is I didn't read up on it before.
It's probably
right?
a good thing.
Yeah. I had an idea. It was like going Philippines, going to Manila. I thought I was going to go to one of them like thousands of clusters of islands with like, you know, the mad trees, the white beaches, the sea. And when I got to it, it was probably the most crowded and densely populated place I've ever been to in my life, times 1,000. Apart from the city centre, which is, you know, you get high rises and all that kind of stuff, everywhere else kind of looks like a slum. And with so many people living in such a condensed area, you see poverty in everywhere that you look. I find it crazy, mate, because you know, I've got my son who's, you know, well, one of my sons who's 14 months old, and, you know, I don't even let him walk around my house. What's that? Was it sharp like this? I see 14-month-old kids walking on the side of a bypass or a motorway, living in a cardboard box with their big sister who's probably 6 looking after them. Yeah, and a lot of the times in the Philippines, mate, you think that, you know, these kids want to get off the street. And I joined a charity to, you know, provide these kids with houses and food. They don't want to go. They want to stay on the street. And that was what was a mad revelation. I thought that we were going to go out that night and rescue, you know, hundreds of kids. And the kids didn't want to be anywhere because there's alcohol on the streets, there's drugs on the streets, there's opportunities to make money on the streets.
So there's better opportunity, really, as far as they're concerned, on the streets than there is in a shelter.
That was an insane revelation for me. Number 2, in the Philippines, mate, they said that we were going to go to a cemetery. It was so strange because, you know, in cemeteries back home, you try and keep it quiet, you keep it really tidy, you know, you try not to walk on the graves, you try and not stay off everything. I went into this cemetery, Foxy, and it was a town. And what I mean by that is, it was its own slum. Like, people lived in the cemetery. Thousands of people were living in the cemetery, living on graves, having businesses in there. It had gangs in there. It was surreal.
Because of the lack of space, they just pitch up anywhere.
Yeah, that's where they're congregating. And it was fine. The more and more I went there, the more and more I seen that, you know, there was a community spirit, there's a community vibe. People were making money by, you know, cleaning the graves. It was really strange. There was a gang in there, and I went and spent a bit of time with a gang in there. There's a thing called a 30-second massacre, yeah, and basically there was this teenager, and he wanted to be part of this gang in the Philippines, and the part of the initiation was to basically get beat on for 30 seconds. So he'd have to face the wall, have his hands on the wall, and he can get punched, kicked, elbowed, kneed, and he's got to put up with it for 30 seconds. So imagine we're in a cemetery, it's probably 1 a.m. in the morning, you know, it's pitch black, you know, people are shining their phone torches, and this kid's just pretty much getting beat up for 30 seconds. I mean, every 5 seconds, he pretty much had to stop. And I don't think they show this part, but, you know, I actually jumped down halfway through because I picked him up off the floor, and rightly or wrongly, I said, you want to do this? Be strong, be brave, pain, it soon shall pass, go for it. And then he got through it. And the reason I did that was because there wasn't, from what I found out, there wasn't a lot of violence from the gangs that were there. They were joining gangs as a community, as a brotherhood. Half of these people have got no brothers and sisters, or they don't know their brothers and sisters, no mum or dad, or they don't know their mum and dad. They've got nobody, so they join a gang as part of like a way to have a brotherhood, have protection, be able to provide. And the gangs work in the Philippines in the cemetery was doing graves.
But you've got to get beaten up to join it.
Yeah, but you've got to get beaten up to join it. So that was a surreal experience. But also what I found in Philippines was, because there were so many people, and I feel like because there were so many people unaccounted for, there were so many people that are not on the birth registry, or, you know, have got no identity, the price of life was very cheap. Like, people were talking about killing people like it wasn't a thing, or like it was a mistake, or, yeah, I had an argument on the beach, and, you know, we had a disagreement and I shot a guy. It was a mistake. And I'm like, well, it wasn't a mistake, was it? You know, I went into a house to break in, to rob this lady, and didn't think the lady was in, but she was in. And I was like, so you killed her? Yeah, killed her by mistake. How? Well, we tied her up to a chair, we've done this,
It's not a fucking mistake.
They didn't see murder as something that was like murder.
We seem to have touched on some far away places, but you've obviously come closer to home, and I feel like it's a good contrast, you know, Europe, Sweden. It's seen as a pretty clean, pretty well-run country. It's sophisticated. Is there a dark side to it?
You know, I thought I was going to see a really, really, you know, enriched country full of, you know, rich people with blonde hair and blue eyes, you know, with no trouble, squeaky clean, you know, and they have like, it's like a WhatsApp, or it's like a dating app for murder. Do you know what I mean? It's like an app that they all go on, and they're like, they put a price on someone's head. Who wants the job? Me, I'll do it. Yo, bro, he's in the restaurant now. I'm sitting with an investigative journalist, right? And he's showing me the chat history. Yo, bro, I'm outside there now. He's in there with his girlfriend. Kill him, bro. Kill him. Shoot him in the head and empty the clip till he's dead. Yeah, bro, I'll do it now. Dumb, bro. Killed him. Nice one, bro. Blah. Just so casually. Like we would be talking on MSN back in the day as kids, or on WhatsApp now, you know.
But is it mainly gangs that are doing that like, or what's the main sort of
it's not even
motivation?
Well, the hits are being put out by probably gang bosses,
yeah,
or people, you know, it could be to do with drugs, it could be to do with revenge, it could be done to make a point, but they're not exclusive to gangs. What I'm saying is, it's like they're being put on the market. It's like eBay for killing people. You know, I've got this contract, this is how much I'm willing to pay. Do you want the job? Job interview, yeah, I'll take it, bang, you know. But one thing that was different about Sweden, I felt like there was two sides of it. There was the side where, you know, you've got a lot of immigrants in Sweden. Now, you had places that were built from back in the day for when, you know, it was the Balkans, and there was a lot of infrastructure there to, you know, provide them housing, give them jobs. Now, you know, Sweden is built, they've still got the flow of, you know, immigrants, but they haven't got the work or the infrastructure there to accommodate them, to bring them into society, so they're ostracized. So they find their own communities. So you've got the side where people are joining gangs and, you know, taking part in criminality and performing, you know, these crazy, insane things like murder and explosives. Or you've got the people now which are from middle class backgrounds, native Swedes, who are finding this gang culture fashionable. You know, it's a way to get girls, it's a way to drive a nice car, it's a way to be in with the crowd, to be respected. People look at immigration as a bad thing, and obviously if you're bringing bad people into the country, it is. But immigration is also great for cultural health of a country, and it boosts the economy. So it's about being able to cultivate the immigration that you're allowing into the country to make it a benefit, not, you know, a massive negative.
The thing I always find with crime, organised crime, whether it's drugs, gangs, people trafficking, wildlife crime, it gives a government a fucking way out of spending money. It's like the crime and organised crime and cartels and gangs basically mean that the government could fucking forget about it. They don't need to spend money on that. They can skim a bit more off the top. They can put it into other things that they're more interested in. And I think that's the key. If they didn't think like that and they started to invest in those areas, in those parts of their country, in those parts of the world that are forgotten about, then you've got a better chance of giving those people a glimmer of hope, and you won't then contribute to the potential downfall of what you consider to be your country. Or, do you know what I'm saying?
I fully understand what you're saying. Well, in your previous line of work, yeah, and I think to a certain extent of things that you do now in terms of, you know, trekking across the Arctic, or, you know, the things that I do, you always say it's better to be proactive than reactive in anything. And I can talk from a personal story, and I've really realized this in Sweden. I used to remember, you know, when I was a professional footballer, you know, we used to have to do like little trips to engage with the community, right? And I'd go into a hospital and I'd go on, you know, you could be on a cancer ward, right? And you see people with cancer, and some of them could be younger people, right? And you go in and you would genuinely be present, you would genuinely give your time, but when you walk out, sometimes it's not like it affected you. You know, it can breeze past, and then you on to the next thing that you have to do. That changed when it happened to me. When my daughter had cancer, everything changed. My life now, a huge part of my life, is not only continuing her legacy, but helping the young kids who follow in her footsteps. And this is what I was trying to say on a systemic level or a middle class level about the people in Sweden. It's like, maybe it's not affecting you at the minute. Maybe you don't care about immigration. Maybe you don't care about the odd people, you know, that get drawn into gang life. But people on the fringes of these worlds are getting caught up more and more every single day. So if something like that happens to you, you're going to wish that there was a change.
But what are you hoping people take away from this documentary, this series?
Do you know what, Foxy? This show is called Ashley Cain Into the Danger Zone because we met a lot of dangerous people and we went to a lot of dangerous places. Apart from the danger, some of the really painful stories, some of the things that are going to shock you to watch and hear, I want a lot of people to take inspiration, to take hope, to take humanity, and to take belief away from this series. Because no matter where I went and no matter how bad the stories were, no matter how much adversity, people faced, I seen beautiful things and I met beautiful people. And whether watching this humbles you into realizing how good your life is, whether it evokes you in terms of wanting to make a change in your life or someone else's life that may be going through something, or whether it simply educates you as a person on the world that we live in today, I believe there's going to be so many things people can take away from this. It's a fucking great series, mate. It's absolutely epic. I'm so proud of it.
Awesome. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah,
genuinely.
Man. Thank you very much, Foxy. Honestly, it's genuinely really
Mate,
good to see
quality,
you again,
mate.
man.
Yeah, no, mate, thank you. Thanks for
Oh,
asking
come
me
on,
in.
oh man, come on. Hopefully we can share some dangers together in the future.
I know, yeah.
Yes, people. I'm Ashley Cain, and you can check out my new documentary series, Into the Danger Zone, on iPlayer. Let's go.